Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something that I'm sure keeps a lot of leaders up at night. How in the world do you plan when the future feels like a total mystery? We're going to dive into why the old ways of thinking just aren't cutting it anymore. And I'll introduce you to a really powerful framework to not just survive, but actually thrive in all this chaos. So let's get right into it.
You know that feeling, right? This sense of what some call managerial anxiety? It's fueled by just constant disruption. And the old playbook, looking at what happened in the past to guess what's next, well, it's pretty much broken. The world is just way too complex now. So the real question becomes, what do we do instead? How do we adapt?
So here's the big mindset shift we've got to make. We have to stop trying to predict one single future. The path forward is not a straight line from the past anymore. What we need to do is embrace the idea that there are multiple plausible futures out there. And this, right here, is the core of a really powerful approach called Strategic Foresight.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to get into this idea of planning for the unplannable. Then, we'll walk through a framework for thinking in multiple futures. After that, we'll talk about finding anchors in all this uncertainty. See how AI is making this whole process way faster. And finally, we'll look at a real-world example to see it in action.
Okay, so this first section really gets to the heart of the matter. It's all about fundamentally changing our relationship with the future, moving away from a place of fear and into a position of real preparation.
The main tool we use for this is called scenario planning. But seriously, forget about crystal balls. The whole point here isn't to guess the one right future. It's about getting ready for several plausible ones. So instead of betting the farm on a single forecast, you build a strategy that's tough enough, resilient enough to work out no matter which way things actually go.
All right, so how do you actually do this? I mean, it's not just sitting around and daydreaming about what could happen. There's a real structured way to think about it, a framework that helps leaders and their teams really get their arms around the unknown.
And I absolutely love this analogy of a pilot's navigation system. Think about it. If you're flying through a massive storm, are you just going to look at one gauge? No way. You need the entire dashboard. And that's exactly how these 6 practices work. They're an integrated system to guide you right through the turbulence.
So, what's on this dashboard? Well, it starts with exploring those external scenarios. From there, you develop adaptive strategies, plans that aren't set in stone. You're constantly monitoring what's going on, building up your organization's agility so you can react fast, and you're sharpening how you make decisions under pressure. And of course, tying it all together is strong leadership. Every piece works with the others to keep you on course.
Okay, this next idea might sound a little backwards at first, but stick with me. To navigate all this uncertainty, we're not going to start by focusing on what's unknown. Nope, we're going to start by figuring out what is certain. We're going to look for our anchors.
Right, this is what pretty much everyone does by default. We spend all our time and energy trying to solve for the variables, worrying about all the things that might happen. And honestly, it's exhausting and it can be totally paralyzing. But what if we flip the script? Strategic Foresight says the most powerful place to start is to get crystal clear on what is certain, or at least very, very stable. These are your anchors in a huge, chaotic sea of unknowns.
And we can find these anchors by looking through 5 different lenses. For instance, material and physical. Think about a country's port infrastructure. That's not going to change tomorrow. Or temporal. Think about demographic shifts, like an aging population in Japan or parts of Europe. That's a trend that's already locked in. Or even political and economic. Powerful industry groups or entrenched regulations. These are the solid knowns that you can actually build your strategy on top of.
And this quote just nails it. Understanding what's fixed isn't about boxing you in. It's actually liberating. It shows you the boundaries of the playing field, and it makes it really clear where you have the freedom to act and innovate. It tells you where your best moves are.
So, right about now, you might be thinking, okay, this all sounds great, but it also sounds like it would take forever. And you know what? In the past, it definitely could. But that is changing, and it's changing fast, all thanks to new tools that help us challenge our own assumptions way more efficiently.
Okay, I love this idea of a ghost scenario. Every single company, every team has one. It's that default future that everyone kind of believes in, but nobody ever really talks about or questions. It's the story you all tell yourselves about how things are going to go. And the biggest risk you face is when that story is dead wrong.
So the million-dollar question is, how do you hunt down this ghost scenario and challenge it? Well, this is where AI becomes an incredibly powerful partner. As this chart shows, you can use AI to just rapidly research and generate alternative futures, and that lets you stress test those hidden beliefs that could be leading you down the wrong path.
Let's make this really concrete.
Say your company's ghost scenario is remote work is the future, period. You could use an AI partner to instantly pull research on counter trends, data on productivity drops, the proven value of in-person collaboration, major companies mandating a return to the office. This forces you to consider other scenarios, which ultimately makes your strategy way more robust. It's making foresight faster and more accessible than it has ever been.
All right, this all sounds great in theory, right? But does it actually work in the real world? Well, let's look at a fantastic example. A centuries-old institution that realized it had to adopt this new way of thinking if it wanted to stay relevant.
I mean, think about it. The Bank of England is supposed to be the guardian of financial stability for the UK. But in a world with cyber attacks, climate change, and massive geopolitical shifts, their old-school, backward-looking models just weren't enough anymore. They knew they had to get proactive and start looking forward.
And what's so interesting here is that their success didn't just come from fancy models or new software. It was all about changing the culture. They created an environment where it was safe to challenge ideas. They treated their scenarios like living documents, always tweaking them. And so importantly, they created a shared language around foresight so everyone was on the same page. It's that human element that really makes this stuff stick.
And this really gets to the heart of what strategic foresight is all about. It's a balancing act. It isn't just about dodging bullets or avoiding disaster. It's about seeing the opportunities that all this uncertainty creates and being ready to jump on them, while also managing your risks. It's about playing both offense and defense at the same time.
Look, if you take only one thing away from all of this, let it be this. Stop chasing the impossible goal of being right about the future. It's a fool's errand. Instead, focus all your energy on building the awareness, the flexibility, and the resilience to be ready for whatever comes your way. Ready, not right.
So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. What's the unexamined ghost scenario that's guiding your team, your company, or maybe even your own career? Because figuring out what that hidden story is, that's the first and most important step to truly preparing for whatever comes next.